when the therapists were talking this morning, and the about their work, the professionals were talking about what it's like to sit and talk with someone when you know that they have this health inside them, and that everything that they're concerned about will be taken care of. You know that somehow they will find a way. And there's no greater gift to me that I've ever experienced in my life is to watch that wake up in people. And that was my dream when I went to university, was to do that. And I was severely disappointed to find out in my classes that they weren't going to talk about any of that. They're going to talk about behavior. And they were going to make us sit in as in experiments with graduate students where we were the guinea pig, and just trying to observe our behavior. I mean, the whole thing looks so absurd to me. I thought, and I was so naive. I mean, I just came out of high school thinking, well, I want to talk with people and help them. And then I find out, no, that's not what we're teaching you right now. We're teaching you about behavior and how to manipulate it. And again, that's another gift that I'm so grateful for, is that along with realizing that my happiness isn't contingent on other people's behavior or events in the world, that I started to get insights about how behavior isn't an indicator of someone else and who they are. Like, I first heard that for myself, but then in my relationships, in my, with my family, and then my professional relationships, to understand that you can't change anyone's behavior, and why would you want to try? That has been the most beautiful gift. And I've watched so many people in their work as educators and as parents, as spouses, as partners in relationships, have their world just blossom from knowing that behavior is a distraction, and we don't have to be distracted by it. Like when I shared my story this morning about how my first insight when I first heard Sid, but I feel like I have a second story, and it happened about maybe 6 years ago, when I woke up one morning and I realized, why am I feeling so much stress when I wake up in the morning? And because by now our practice on Salt Spring had grown. Like when we first moved back to Salt Spring, when Sid was, starting to be ill, and we wanted to be around him while we could, and we moved back to Salt Spring. So that whole time in the beginning, we just spent time with Sid, and we just tried to quieten our life down. So the next thing you know, we had to get back to work, and the work was mostly back in Florida. And so we were starting over again. And so it didn't take long. And next thing you know, we've got a full plate with work, and a lot of it is overseas. So when I would wake up in the morning, I'd think, well, all these people on, the other side of the world, they've been writing to us and they're waiting to hear from us. So I got into this habit of just getting up in the morning and going to my office and looking at the correspondence. And so that morning when I woke up, I thought, this isn't right. I help people see that we don't need to have stress in our lives. But here I am waking up, just falling into that feeling of pressure. Like, well, what do I have to do today? Will I get it done? And so that morning, something really beautiful happened to me, because my true self spoke up to me again. And I heard, remember in the beginning when you first heard about the principles and you first heard about this understanding, and Sid was still here, we were living close to him, but we would still read a little something or listen to a little recording of Sid to start the day. So even though he was here and we would see him maybe later on, that week or whatever, I would start my day by listening to some materials. And I had I was having a less stress-free, I was having a more stress-free life back then. So that morning, about 6 years ago, I thought, okay, I can see what's going on. I'm going from waking up from sleep when your mind is quieter, you're dreaming maybe, but then I'm jumping from that and just heading right into that world of details and extra thought and trying to make it all work, like trying to make sure I get caught up on my to-do list and make sure that I answer to everybody that's waiting out there to hear from me. And so it just looked so absurd to me all of a sudden. So that morning I went in the living room with my cup of tea and I started reading Sid's books again. And I started with the first, I forget, Second Chance probably. And I might only just read a paragraph. Actually the first day I read a little bit more because my mind was still going. So the next morning I got up and I did the same thing. And I thought, I'm going to start fresh in the morning. I'm going to start from the spiritual world and then live my human life and go back into the details of life. But at first, I'm going to keep that connection of first waking up when my mind, before it gets busy, that feeling. And so each day that I did that, I would read less and less of Sid's book because I'd be so struck by one paragraph. It was so powerful. And it reminded me the first time Sid gave me a copy of his first chapters of Second Chance to read here on Salt Spring. He said, oh, here, have a look at this, dearie. And I read the first page and I was sitting on his sofa and the tears were coming down my face from one page. And he came in the room and I remember just looking at him like, this, Sid, I don't know what you've done here, but this is powerful. So as I started to take that time in the morning to listen again, it came to the point where some mornings I might read just like a few sentences. And when I found that when I got the feeling and I felt that feeling wake up in me and I might choke up or tear up, I just put the book down because I think, why read more? You heard something. It's not about how many pages you read. It's what you just heard. You got the feeling. And that's how those books were written. So then I guess a few mornings later, Chip was coming out of through the living room to go make his coffee. And I looked over at Chip and I just felt this feeling just wash over me. And I just choked up and I felt, and it's like Chip was talking about it. I felt like I saw Chip. I saw him in the moment from that beautiful feeling. And so then the next part of the whole situation was all those things that I've been trying to make happen, like how to keep up with the workload and how to not be having my to-do list always in the forefront so that I couldn't even relax. I always was the thoughts about keeping up were always going on. That all settled down. And I found I was becoming so efficient with work and the things that I used to really hate doing, like the administrative things, they were no big deal. They were just like, okay. And then the next thing I know, one day I was just sitting on a break at work between my work day and my rest of my day. And I felt this feeling like time had stretched. Because all of a sudden I'd been able to have time to go for walks or just take time when we talk to our kids on the phone or our grandkids, like just to slow down and be present with them. So basically, that's what I was discovering, is I was becoming more present with life. And so basically what happened was that just I got the connection between giving myself that space to really hear my true self, to go there first before being a human being in the world of this reality, to start from there and know that that's where creation starts. It's always happening from our true self. So we look at the end results, like cause and effect. We look at the end results and we think, well, how do I fix that? Instead of going back to where it started. It's like if you're there was an old joke about this too, but you're working on a computer when computers came out, and if somebody made a mistake and you tried to put whiteout on the screen, it doesn't work that way. You fix it from inside. It's all being created from inside.